Hello, viewers, and welcome to the Team VVV podcast. I'm Alan, and tonight I'm joined by Kevin
Hi guys.
and Kevin. So there we are.
Hello.
Just the two of us tonight, Kevin. Always getting
Yep.
into the swing of things. As ever, it's been a busy week of racing, gaming news, and we'll just go through the news now for a bit of chats, just catching up. And of course, some of the most recent news today, of course, as we record this, is the first F1 2018 gameplay. Seeing a bit of Charles Leclerc racing around Monaco, Monte Carlo, the jewel in the crown of the Formula One calendar. Certainly, it's an auspicious occasion, and it's a great occasion for Codemasters to get this out and to get it out so soon in the season. Over the course of the last few years, we've seen them normally around sort of June, July time showing it for the first time. So in May, that's a step forward. It shows they're moving ahead with development quite swiftly, and no doubt we will see the game just like last year at E3. But first opportunity to see the game today. It looks like refinements here and there. Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's basically what we expected, isn't it? It's more or less the same. I guess some things look better, maybe some things even might look a little bit worse. But of course, you have that halo now, which is very interesting. We have this sort of T-cam viewpoint, slightly left of center, I guess. And I don't know. I mean, from this view, I don't know if this is actually a gameplay viewpoint or not. There's a little bit of confusion.
It is. It is. I will just say they've had the podcast. They had the pod camera in for a couple of years, and some people like to drive from off center because they like to drive it as it is on TV rather than from the center of the car. I've never understood that myself because it's essentially position formula. But I think and I have seen chat about the halo. The halo is something I've spoken to developers about last year, and we've laughed about, joked about, but it's no laughing matter now because they've got to put it in the game. And I think the first thing I saw in some of the comments were, why don't they make it invisible or transparent or something like that? Why can't you switch it off? Well, you can't because it's on the real cars. So the game has to look like real life. It's not a choice by Codemasters to say, ooh, we don't like that bit on the car, so we'll take it off because
it has to represent the sport, doesn't it? Because of the license, whether it's a good thing or not. In this case, a lot of people are against the halo, of course. But I mean, from this viewpoint, it's not too bad, is it? I think it's manageable. But I want to see the driver cam just to get a better idea of how much it actually obscures the viewpoints.
That's it. It is manageable. I think we might have a slightly different in-car view that might be slightly further forward and have a slightly different perspective. I think they'll want to give you, they may even have a helmet cam because the driver's saying the helmet, they can't see it as well. So that would cut off a little bit at the top of the screen as well. And they might look to do something that just alters the overall view from inside the car. I think it'll be interesting to see. It really doesn't work on a video game on a flat screen, the halo in that sense, when it comes to in the car. And I've noticed they've skipped around it. So I think at E3, the footage that everybody wants to see is going to be cockpit cam. And I think in that sense, that's where we're going to see the really big difference between the classic cars and the modern cars in that sense, because you're gonna have this sort of claustrophobic cage around you, and then you're going to jump out of that, and be virtually naked in the.
And it's going to feel more dangerous, isn't it, and raw, and it's sort of keeping with that time period. So it would just make those cars feel all the more special, which they were, of course. They were very dangerous back then. And, cars today are very safe, relatively speaking. And like you say, this halo is going to be, putting quite a few people off. But going back to the classic cars, like you say, it's going to just make it feel all the more special. But, the Codemasters will be using all the tricks in the book to try and get around this halo in terms of viewpoints, what works and what doesn't work. So no doubt they've been racking their brains over the months to try and give players, the best possible viewpoints while still making the game playable.
Absolutely, and it's a case of waiting and seeing, but certainly, it'll be interesting to see how it changes the driving feel from each viewpoint. I really dislike the look from the T-cam now. It's right in the way. It's not the same, is it? So let's wait and see. For F1 2018, I will say that the graphics do seem as ever a little bit more refined. There seems to be little spot details here and there, tarmac details. There's only so much they can do with the current hardware. You've got 20 cars on track, all using AI, all with tyre wear. Codemasters pretty much maxing it out this year in terms of what they can do with the hardware, and I think no doubt they are building towards the future but it's piece by piece with an annual franchise. And I still see people complaining of, why do I have to buy a full game? Well, it's like FIFA and every other yearly franchise. There's a yearly license. You have to pay it. It's going to be full price. And it's amazing. We see it every single year. The football fans don't necessarily moan about it, but the racing gamers do. No. They really do. And you think, what would you rather? No Formula One game at all, like we didn't have for a while. So it's just one of those things. If you want to enjoy Formula One, if you do want to see a step change in the graphics, simply don't buy one for 4 years. And imagine it's like Gran Turismo. 4 years from now, you'll have a much better step change in graphics. And I think that's.
It's like you say, Alan. Like they've pretty much hit the peak of what they can do graphically. With the hardware limitations. So they're very much diving into the career mode and expanding the depth in that, which is great to see, because the more elements they add to the career mode that make you feel like a real driver, I'm all for, because that's what got me hooked when Codemasters first released 2010, all those years back. It made me feel like a Formula One driver, and that's what I want. I want to see more of those aspects brought into the game, of course. Once now they've sort of hit what they can do in terms of on sort of in-race action, I guess. So it's good to see them that they're expanding the career modes, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with next gen. They'll have a massive step up in terms of hardware, so they can perhaps put a break on the career stuff and really go to town on the visuals and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But yes, it's looking good, isn't it? Formula One 2018, but then again, we expected it to look good. But I'm looking forward more so to the career aspects rather than what we see in terms of racing, because it's more or less going to be the same, isn't it?
It is. I mean, like you say, every year they build on it, but it's all about the core game, the core physics handling, and everything working and making the experience as stable as possible. So it will be interesting to see how.
Online is certainly one area they need to improve, isn't it, this year? Because last year had some pretty major issues online. So if they get the online working well, I think it's going to be a cracking title.
Absolutely, and I think esports is going to be bigger than ever this year. So I think they're going to want all of the authentic TV cameras and really make that coverage as authentic as possible. So that's very exciting. Right, moving on then. We've got, what have we got? We've got MXGP Pro. New trailer's been shown this week. What are the key developments you've seen in the new trailer, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, so you have the compound returning. I think it went away for MXGP 3. I think it was DLC actually in MXGP 3, which was something that was included with 1 and 2, I believe. Certainly was in 2 anyway. And the compound is just basically a place where you can sort of get to grips with the game, learn the ropes, and you have like a motocross track and a supercross track. I think the one's bigger than the other, and you can sort of basically a bit of free roam if you like. You can sort of do a bit of messing about. I think there's some time attack and some racing as well if you feel so inclined. But I've got to say, visually, I was very impressed with what I've seen here in this trailer, which is on the channel. So do have a look at that if you haven't seen it yet. It just looks very nice, doesn't it? Almost looks like kiloton levels of foliage. They seem to get some really nice detail in the trees and the general foliage, which really sort of brings the environment to life. Some very nice lighting effects as well, reflections. The dirt is looking good and stuff. But I guess we have to wait and see how it is in gameplay, because it's that's where it's going to sort of pass or fail the test, I guess.
It is.
But,
and
looks good, doesn't it?
It does look good. I mean, I've played it already, and I don't know if we can show footage yet, but if we haven't, we'll have a little clip coming up on the channel. But it does look really nice in gameplay at the moment. Just very challenging as ever, and we'll look at that more when we have our previews. You can ride through the forest anywhere you want. There's little tracks in there. It's a nice little sort of range of tricks and areas to discover in that map. And I think it makes a nice little addition, in playing it how you want to play it, either as a time trial, either as just randomly driving around, or even as a race. So nice options there, and it looks really nice, So there's obviously, you can see it's a very different game. Milestone have moved on a lot in the past year on MXGP 3, and it'll be interesting to see how it works with the new manual whips and scrubs. We'll talk about more of that in the preview. So MXGP looking good. Preview to come in the next few weeks, and of course that's released at the end of June. Moving on, we've got let's take a look. We've got a new car selection coming, going to be revealed for Gran Turismo, and I haven't had a chance to look at all of the sort of chat online at the moment, but if we were to make a guess, Martin is normally the man when it comes to car silhouettes. He tends to pick up them very quickly, but I'd say top left, we've probably got a Subaru. bottom left, we've probably got a Mercedes A-Class, something like that. Maybe a Mercedes touring car based on the A-Class. We've got, is that a Fiat 500 in the middle?
Definitely a Fiat 500, yeah.
Top right, possibly a Ferrari, possibly an old Ferrari. Then we've got what looks like a touring car again there, perhaps to race that Mercedes. And then bottom right, that could be a Le Mans car, old Le Mans, 90s Le Mans. It could be concept, very difficult to say. Vision, I say Vision. And the others are very difficult to determine. So, yeah, always a good selection. I think what we really want for Gran Turismo, though, is new tracks. There are a lot of tracks.
You say new tracks, we want old tracks, don't we?
Old tracks.
Stuff back.
Exactly.
They said they was working on Forest Raceway, so I'd be interested to see if that actually comes to light. But apparently, they're looking at other old tracks as well to come. So nothing surprises me now with GT Sport. Ever since the single-player campaign was sort of tacked on, I didn't think we'd see that. I didn't think they'll do like a U-turn, if you like, on their sports sort of mantra. So the fact that they've added that, I mean, anything's possible now with GT Sport. Who knows where it's going to go in the future? And assuming this is the only Gran Turismo for this generation, they can continue to develop GT Sport. They can continue to add tracks, hopefully some old ones, as well as all the cars and stuff. But I want to see more road cars. I want to see more road car classes, more sort of lower powered stuff as well, because we've got enough of the race car categories, I feel. And of course, we have a lot of prototype categories, cars and the sort of Vision GT stuff. I just want to see it go back to its roots a little bit more now. Have like K car category, for example, these old sort of 90s box Japanese cars that I love so much. It just adds that sort of quirky Japanese thing to it that appealed to me for so many years.
They do have that character about them, classic Gran Turismo feel, but does it tie in with the whole FIA license thing? Probably not right now, but we're not far from E3, and I would expect that they've got something special lined up.
They seem to be moving away, though, don't they? They seem to be moving away from the FIA stuff with the introduction of the single-player campaign, for example. So I guess they have some wiggle room there. That they've started off dead serious, but then they've gone back a little bit and given players more of what they want in terms of like the old sort of content and such. So it wouldn't surprise me, Alan, at this point.
No, I do think E3 could see a big package. I think it was a good platform to say, hey, we've got 5 new tracks and 20 new cars, and this is all for
amazing.
All for E3, and you can play them today. And it would be something like that, which would be amazing if they did something like that. But the year is still relatively young, but there's still a lot more we want in terms of content in there.
They're certainly working hard, aren't they? Polyphony. They've supported this game immensely. I think this has passed everyone's expectations. I mean, it's up there with sim racing support. It's they just keep adding content after content, and it probably will end up winning the best supported game of the 2019 awards. The way they're going, it's just incredible. Yeah,
but certainly very competitive. I mean, this year they've needed to add a lot, and they have added a lot.
Yeah,
and we'll that's it all sort of later in the year, but we'll wait and see. There's still a lot to come out. Forza Horizon, iRacing are always working on it. It's always very competitive, but it's good to see in the post-release category. So Gran Turismo, then new cars coming on the way there. Now, other quick bit of news: called sidecars were released for Isle of Man TT Isle of Man today. I haven't played them yet. I've seen a couple of videos of other people playing them, and I have to say, not massively keen on what I've seen, but I'm looking forward to trying it out. I think we always knew that sidecar implementation would be tricky due to the amount of animation going on, but it certainly seems interesting in terms of the rigidity. But we're not going to go into that too much now. Kevin, you'll do a video once you try it out, and then we can talk a bit more on that one. Elsewhere, iRacing has seen the Porsche 911 RSR joining iRacing coming in June. Nice to see the expansion there. Looks really nice as well. Very nice looking car model they've put together there. And another quick thing we mentioned, forgot to mention on Gran Turismo, of course, it's passed its 80 million sales for the entire Gran Turismo series. I mean, that is a tremendous amount of units and that's a lot of money they've made for Sony there as well. That is a lot of money. and it just
if you
shows.
do the math, it comes out to around 3 million sales for GTSport. I mean, that's an estimate. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it works out around sort of 3 million marks. It's not too bad, is it, for a game that essentially is almost like a spin-off of the main sort of Gran Turismo series titles. But I guess because it is the only one on the platform, people are hungry for their Gran Turismo fix. So I guess in that respect, it doesn't really surprise me too much. But I mean, 18 million sales, absolutely incredible. I remember all those years ago, reading through magazines, seeing preview shots of Gran Turismo 1 and getting onto the demo. I've been there since the start, and it certainly has a big place in my heart. Gran Turismo, it's certainly got me really seriously into the racing genre, as it did a lot of people, no doubt. And my favorite is actually Gran Turismo 4. I felt that it had the most events and the most interesting elements in the series to date. And it probably made that one of the biggest Gran Turismo in terms of sales, because they don't sell as much as they used to, do they? Unfortunately.
I mean, the times have changed, the market's changed. It's a very competitive market now compared to where it was. But to sell 3 million in 9 months is amazing. It's well on target to pass 5 million sales at that rate. And if they do release a big DLC pack, that could see a big boost from the community again. So, I think, again, it's just a shame that it's so late in the PlayStation's life cycle to be released, because had it been released a year or two earlier, it would have done much better, no doubt about it. But let's hope when the PlayStation 5 comes out, that we're not waiting another 5 years for the next version.
Imagine.
Well, I mean, in theory, they could just upgrade this one, but that's what we said last time, wasn't it? Let's give us GT6 HD. That's all we wanted, GT6 HD, and it just didn't happen. So Gran Turismo there, of course. G Rally. Tell us a bit about G Rally. What's that all about, Kevin?
Yeah, so G Rally has launched on Steam Early Access at last. It's been in development for quite some time. I believe it's only one-man development team, so it's at least one man doing the main bulk of the work. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's what it is. And I think the development actually originates from Richard Byrne racing fans. So it's like a few of those guys chipping in to create this game. And I haven't played it yet. I will get onto it soon, though, because it does look interesting. And certainly, with Richard Byrne's rally sort of pedigree behind it, it should make for a fantastic little sim. But certainly not market leading in terms of graphics, because it is a very sort of low key development. But as long as the physics are there, of course, it should make for a very interesting experience. It's only £2.89 on Steam at the moment. So at that rate, you'd be mad not to try it. So yeah,
it's certainly a game we should look at more in the future. Of course, MotoGP, we're going to have some coverage coming up on that on the channel very shortly as well. Developer interview, so we can look forward to that. So MotoGP this year, brand new physics, brand new graphics, physics, Unreal 4 engine technology. We're going to look more at that in a preview in the coming days. Look forward to that. And of course, Forza Motorsport 7 is going to have a huge update, going to bring lots of new features. One of the most interesting things, though, I'll just talk about is the track limits system. It looks very, very cool in the way it lays out these lines around the course to show you where the track limits are. So you can see exactly where they are now. It's not an invisible line. It's visible for people to see, just to make it a bit fairer, so people know when they can ride curbs and when they can't. And it's tricky doing track limits, because it's how much of a curb can you take in some corners. And quite often in games, I find that, you run over a curb that the real cars go over, and it's saying you're over track limits, which is quite frustrating when that's part of the natural racing line. But either way, nice to see Forza Motorsport developing and bringing lots of new features there. We should really take a look at that again in the future. I'll speak to James Allen a bit about that. He's always on it. And that covers the main news, I believe, this week. Kevin, is there any highlights in terms of news that have jumped out for you?
I guess the only other thing really is the return of the MotoGP Esports Championship, which promises to be bigger and better than ever. So, building on last year's championship, it will be open now to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC owners, whereas before it debuted just for the PlayStation 4 players. It begins on the 18th of July and they've already lined up the first sort of 4 challenges as well, and the racetracks involved as well. So there are sort of semi-finals and different events, and then of course you have the final event as well.
As ever with all these things, viewers, we always try and bring as much news as we can. But I can say that the F1 and MotoGP are never really that helpful with games publications. They're very much focused on the automotive. But we will endeavour to try and prise that door open and get you guys some fluid coverage in due course. Certainly, we would like to see more esports on the site, stuff like that. And I think that covers the key news this week. We sort of flashed through it. It's just the two of us this week. We'll have more time coming up soon, a preview for E3, of course. Kevin, do we have any questions from viewers?
Just a couple of questions, really. Right, so Neil asks, what are your favourite non-racing titles?
Favourite non-racing titles? Well, I play a wide range, really. I mean, I play a lot of FPS games, normally what I play. I suppose Star Wars Battlefront I played quite a bit. I haven't played much recently, though, I have to admit. I mean, when I try covering games like at EGX, it's a real break for me to cover other genres. But I like everything. FPS titles, retro games, shoot-em-ups, old school 2D scrolling shoot-em-ups, stuff like that. I have quite a wide range of retro stuff that I like to play. So I guess these days, there's nothing that I'm necessarily putting all my time into at the moment. I would have liked to have played God of War recently because it looked really good. But it's one of those things where I'm so busy with what I'm doing that I don't always have the time. But I generally like to play the odd FPS and get stuck into that. How about yourself, Kevin?
I do like my sort of horror titles and sort of horror related titles, I guess. So for me, if I could name a few series just to give you guys a better idea, so things like Bioshock, Dead Space, Dark Souls, Resident Evil, and I guess Fallout as well. Those are some of the standout series that I do enjoy outside of racing. And games like that are good for sort of late night gaming sessions, whereas I find racing more sort of suited to earlier in the evening, if you like. It's not something I want to do past midnight necessarily on the racing wheel, so making too much noise. But I like games to sort of chill out late at night, and those sort of horror games are right up my street.
See, you're very brave, Kevin. You're very brave. I do play. I mean, like, I love Doom 3. I love it. I love Doom anyway.
That was scary, wasn't it?
Doom 3 was so scary. And then you had those bouncing babies that would cry and bounce and eat your face. Oh my God! I'd get my minigun out and I'd tear into those guys. I just hated them, and I got like goose pimples every time. I was like, oh, get away! Oh God, they would just come up, chew your face, and it's horrible. I thought Doom actually was terrifying. Get through the whole game, go to hell and everything. Oh, it really was, and you felt so lonely.
Yeah.
Actually, Dead Space 1 was quite similar to that. I thought Dead Space 1 had quite a feeling of loneliness and dread, but in another way, I thought it was a very cool sort of like Alien or Event Horizon. It had that, and I suppose in a way, Alien Isolation does as well. It has that sort of, I mean, the alien's quite terrifying in it because you look around and it's just there. In that sense, it's quite scary. So for me, I guess, like you say, it's Star Wars Battlefront, Pac-Man DX, Geometry Wars, whatever it is. I obviously I play a bit of Redout now and again. I literally go with the moment. Sometimes I latch onto a game for months, years sometimes, and I can stick with the same game. I'm quite a boring gamer in that sense, mainly because I just like to play a game and get good at it. But I have to say, you played through Resident Evil on the PSVR, Kevin. That was very brave. My goodness me, I can't stand horror games on VR. I just don't know how you do it. But you did it at night, through the night as well. Yeah,
it was an interesting experience actually. That was probably my highlight for the PlayStation VR. Racing games so far, we've had very sort of limited experiences, I guess. So we're not quite ready, are we, in the racing genre for VR? This is one area that's really going to improve, hopefully, next generation. But Resident Evil 7 certainly opened my eyes to the power of VR and how it really brings you, sort of immerses you in that world. And there's nothing better than the horror genre to really put you in the moment. So that was fantastic to see. No doubt next generation will get some amazing racing game experiences which equally put you in the moment. Okay, so elsewhere we have Nick, who asks, or who says that recently Codemasters tweeted hinting something about the TOCA series, possibly a HD remaster of the original. Thoughts on this?
I think we've sort of been over this before. TOCA on its own is not a big enough license now to carry the cost of development of a video game. However, it is worthy of inclusion into a larger package. And if Codemasters are making Grid 3 this year, then it would be a good selling point to have the Touring Car Championship in there. But if they are going to do the Touring Car Championship, I hope it's not like they did with the Rallycross Championship in Dirt 4, because it was a bit of the Rallycross Championship with the official license.
Yeah.
And if they've just got a bit of the Touring Car Championship because they have the official license and they've only got 4 tracks from the championship, doesn't really work, does it?
No. Do you know what? That was one of my pet peeves with Gran Turismo 5. They had these licenses and they sort of cherry-picked things here and there from that license. They didn't give you any comprehensive championship from them. So it was it was a poor use of license, wasn't it? And we very much frown upon these things because you can do so much better with these licenses. But like you say, if it's going to be included in Grid, there's probably a good chance that it's just like a side portion, unfortunately. But like you say, the market's not there, is it? So we just have to sort of go with what's popular at the time.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, there was a team of probably 15 people working on the PlayStation version. Now there's hundreds of people. The investment is so much higher to make these racing games now. They need to appeal to so many more people globally. Yes,
I mean, so Codemasters, are a massive company. I think the recent valuation puts them somewhere near the 300 million mark. So, there's going to be working on something. They're always going to have something that they're tinkering away on, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've grown as a company. They've expanded. They saw some more investment last year. That's seen quite a growth in the Formula One development team, and I saw that. And we're going to see the improvements probably next year. It does take time to see that. And I think really you'll see the series come into its own actually on the next generation, because, we're still at this generation right now where you've got so many cars and so much data. For a memory resource of handling that many cars on track with that much fuel data, that much tire data is still pushing the system, and then having the graphics on top. But with the investment they're going to have now, they're going to have way more resource to make these games, and perhaps even set up 2 teams so that they can sort of push each other in that way. And we've seen some of the developments, of course, with companies such as Kiloton, radical improvements in terms of their rally game every year. So it's a competitive market. Codemasters have seen a lot of investment over the past few years into their facility, and no doubt we'll see that. And of course, with the growth of Formula One esports, it's going to help the company no end in terms of exposure, and especially now that the F1 game is used regularly now on the F1 Facebook page. So certainly they're doing well there. So that was it, a bit on Codemasters. I can't remember what the question was now. We sort of sailed away from it, didn't we? What was the question again, Kevin?
Oh, the thoughts on a potential TOCA game.
TOCA. So that was yes, that was it. So no, TOCA is a no, probably included in Grid 3 if it happens. And it'll be interesting to see what Codemasters have in terms of announcements. It seems like they just want to get Formula One out the way. I don't think they're going to announce anything at E3 other than Formula One in terms of reveals. I'd be quite surprised. But I think we could see something announced later this year, perhaps, just after the release of F1. We'll wait and see. Traditionally, Codemasters have always announced their games in May and October. They're the 2 months when Codemasters have announced new games over the years, looking at various different titles. So we'll wait and see what they've got there. But I think that's about it for this podcast today, Kevin. I think we've had a quick one today, as it's just the 2 of us. And we'll get, as I say to viewers, we'll get back into the swing of things gradually in due course. Hopefully some of you have received our GDPR email. Goodness me, I've received so many of them this week. Privacy updates and everything. Wow. But do sign up to the mailing list if you've received that email. And our newsletter will happen one day. It hasn't happened yet, but it will happen one day. And there's a lot to look forward to there. It's going to be awesome. Right. Well, that's it for this podcast now. That's it. Thanks for your time, Kevin. And thanks for listening, viewers. And there'll be more from us very soon.
Well, how do you like it?